Okay, Dan, we ready to go?
Yes.
I'd call the Planning, Environment, and Development Public Committee meeting for May 6th to order. Roll call, looks like we're all here this morning. A motion to approve the minutes from the April 1st meeting. Moved by Mr. Gaudemeyer, seconded by Jim. Any comment regarding the minutes? No comment, we'll go to vote. All those in favor of approving the minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Now we're gonna move right on to public comment. And did we have a gentleman that wanted to speak or not?
Do you want to provide public comment?
Okay, I'll be real quick.
Nope, whatever you want to do, please introduce yourself and let us know. Let us know what's on your mind this morning.
I'm Lloyd Everard. I'm a trustee on the McHenry County Conservation District. See you. Good to see you. And Joe, it's a very important decision you're going to make this morning as we try to fill a vacant position on the board, and I look forward to your deliberation and selecting the best candidate.
Okay, great. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Okay. Now we're gonna go on to members' comments. Any members got any comments this morning? We got about 8 minutes to fill, guys.
I will finish the routine consent agenda and everything else in those 8 minutes.
Yeah,
Okay.
there you go.
So Mr. Hamm is not in the audience anywhere, no. So we don't want to start early. We could move to the routine consent agenda. Does anybody have anything they would want to pull off of the routine consent agenda? No. Okay.
I'll move to approve the routine consent
We have a
agenda.
motion to approve the routine consent agenda, seconded by Carl. Any further discussion? We'll go to vote. Jim?
Yes.
Carolyn?
Yes.
Joe?
Yes.
Dina?
Yes.
Paul?
Yes.
Carl?
Yes.
And I'll vote yes. So that's taken care of. Now we have to kill the next settlement. Okay. Is that Mr. Hamm? Okay, great. Glad you come in a few minutes early. We'll put you on the spot right away if you want to sit down and get comfortable. I guess what we'd ask of you is just introduce yourself a little bit and tell us a little bit why you'd be interested in this position.
Okay, my name's Jared Hamm. I live in McHenry County here in Huntley. I started volunteering with the Conservation District on the prescribed burn crew. I think it was back in 2023. Really enjoyed being able to be a part of the group, and I've learned quite a bit, and it's a good group of people. And, I work for Illinois Department of Transportation. I run most of the road construction projects in McHenry County, so I have less time to volunteer and donate my time during the summer and spring when it's construction season. So I was looking for other ways to volunteer time with the district, and I thought getting on the board would be a good step since the meetings tend to be in the evenings, and just looking for a way to get back.
Okay, great. Yeah, how many times, Carolyn, how many times do they meet? I lose track.
Yeah, that was gonna be one of my questions about
Okay.
time commitment, but that's a good
Why don't you
point.
start out with
Yeah.
that? Go right ahead.
So to Larry's point, they do meet twice. So the time commitment definitely every month is 2 meetings per month. And like you said, they're generally in the evenings. And if I miss anything, Lloyd, just jump in. The agendas can be pretty long, so it is a lot of reading beforehand, but meeting-wise, it is the 2 meetings. And then, you might anticipate during the year kind of special call meetings. They don't have a lot, but you might have something in the way of a strategic planning, maybe a half day or a couple of hours, or maybe sometimes they meet with their foundation. Oftentimes they try to do that during the regular board meeting anyway, so it's not necessarily an additional one. Or there might be like a budget meeting or something that they might do. And I also know that there are events throughout the year that it is good to have representation there if you can. I mean, it's only if, people have different work schedules, so it doesn't always work out. But having trustees at these events, it's a good idea to get out to the public and be the face of the organization. So I guess that question would be, does that fit in kind of with what you're able to do?
Yes. And I work for the state, so we have quite a bit of lead time available. So if there is stuff during the day that but as long as I know in advance, like, I have time available, I can take off and meet daytime time obligations.
Yeah, that's good. Anyone else? Carl?
Two quick questions. One, have you attended any of the conservation meetings in the past?
I have not.
Or video, virtual, watching?
No, but I probably should have, but I have not.
One thing that you stated is that you want to take as many of the acres and return it to prairie. You're talking what the conservation currently has and turning it back to pasture where, you know, the citizens of McHenry could view it and get to be, and not exclude them from it, right?
Correct.
Okay.
I got really excited this year. I got to go out and see the bison at the farm out there, and I thought that was a pretty cool operation they had going.
It's
I know that
awesome.
one's not open for the public, but it'd be cool to get something going to where the public could come out and see that.
Yeah, because that is exceptional of how they've already started to return that to the prairie land.
Okay, anyone else have anything? Go ahead, Joe.
Right, so we're in a difficult dilemma today. We have 6 people on this for applying for one position.
Yep.
What do you bring that the others don't have? And I know you may not know anything about the others, but why should we pick you?
I'm eager to help out as much as I can, and been helping with the prescribed burn crew, and I've got to see a lot of the properties that a lot of the public doesn't get to see just from the burn stuff we've done. Also working for the state. I don't know if there's ever any coordination with IDOT jobs and stuff. I'm a good resource for dealing with the state. I administer road construction projects, so I know, talking with the guys on the prescribed burn crew, that the conservation district hires contractors to do work, and I'm very good dealing with contractors and making sure they're following specifications and giving us the product that we're paying for. I guess that's what I feel I bring to the table.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, good answer. Carolyn, you have something else?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I mean, I think Carl hit on it, because I wanna make sure I'm consistent with each, each person interviewing, but, you talked about the challenges, so, as you're out there, doing the burn, which is a very cool thing to do, that's quite an operation. What do you talk about, what is that the primary challenge you see, is that restoration work, or what do you have several things here that you've listed, but what would you say is one of the major challenges for the district right now? Or one of them, it doesn't have to be the most.
I know budgets are tight, so it's getting as much benefit for the dollars as they can get, and the volunteer program is very crucial for allowing more of these burns, and I know that they do their restoration days. I guess just talking those up and getting as much volunteer effort to aid in getting more acres maintained and restored.
Thank you.
Okay. I have a question for you, I guess, sort of following up on Carl's, and it's making sure many acres as possible get restored to its original prairie land. And that sort of reads two ways to me. It's like more acres for the conservation district, or take the acres they have and restore it.
I think there's so many, well, I don't know the numbers, but I know that there's many acres that the conservation district has control of. A lot of them are not open to the public. So keeping as much and restoring as much.
It's more about using what they got and trying to restore it, as opposed to going out and seeing them all.
Yeah, I don't, to me, it doesn't make sense to keep buying more and more, but they've got so much acreage available that they have to work on, that I think it's important to maintain what we have currently.
Okay, that clarifies it for me, so that's fine. Okay, does anyone else have anything? Okay, as you know, and I think somebody already said it, there's 6 or 7 people coming here this morning for one position, so
Okay.
just it's gonna be a tough decision for us, and 5 or 6 people are gonna be disappointed.
That's all right.
But thank you very much for coming in.
Thank you for having me.
If it's okay, well,
Oh, go ahead.
no, not a
Sorry.
question, but I will say, people do come back, so come back again, because it takes several times. It takes several times to come on, so
Sometimes.
it's all good, yeah.
Okay.
It can.
Thank
so,
you.
If it doesn't work.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Very good.
Brian's here.
Okay. We can move right forward then. If Mr. Doyle would like to come up. Oh, he's up now, great. Mr. Doyle.
Good morning.
Please have a seat and introduce yourself a little bit.
Okay.
And tell us why you'd be applying for this position, please.
Okay. My name is Bryan Doyle. I've lived in McHenry County since 2001. Have really enjoyed the county parks. I love being outdoors. I've been camping, hiking, all of those things. Recently started volunteering as part of the SWEET program, and also am going to be volunteering for Butterfly County. And when I saw that the board position was available, I thought this is another great way for me to get involved with the Conservation District. I think, my interest in the position is really trying to strike the right balance between making our parks accessible for our residents, but also balancing that with the conservation needs of both the plants and the wildlife in the parks. And I know that sometimes can be a challenge, right? Ensuring that folks have access to things, but as well protecting the wildlife and the plants. So a little bit more about me. I work for Huntington Bank. I'm in charge of their third-party risk, which is basically ensuring that any of the vendors or third parties that we do business with have the right controls in place, primarily to protect our customers' data, but as well are financially stable, a lot of those things. So ensure that the folks that we're doing business with have the right controls in place. So I think that's my introduction.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Doyle? Good, Carolyn?
Okay, I'll start, because we had started at the beginning just about time commitments, so just
Yes.
making sure that obviously you have time for some of these other things that you're enjoying.
Yes.
And this is a great program. So the meetings are a couple nights a month.
Okay.
The agendas can get pretty long, so it's a
Okay.
lot of reading, but, and then otherwise during the year, there might be special call meetings or might include like a strategic planning meeting or maybe a budget, retreat or a board retreat, or it might, sometimes they'll meet with their foundation, but that generally is at the same time as a regular board meeting.
Okay.
So those are some other commitments, and it's not an obligation, but it is good to have people who can maybe occasionally get out. So those meetings are very important, those extra meetings, but then the other thing would be getting out. They'll oftentimes be hosting at events, like there might be a table or other events that are either they host or maybe another organization hosts, where it might be good to have some representation from the trustee board. That is not an obligation, but it is nice when people can do that occasionally.
Sure.
And help with that output. So I don't know if that's something that would work with your schedule.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes.
And then I guess I'll just keep going, sorry.
Yeah.
Let everybody go. In terms of, so that you feel like the time commitment is okay. Looking back, I know everyone was asked what the challenges are, but after you've submitted your application and had a chance to think some more, what would you say is a primary or a kind of a major challenge that the district is facing, or at least one of them that you think is important to talk about?
Yeah, I suspect one currently is probably funding with what's happening with the federal government. I know that recently there was a levy passed to help with funding, but I suspect that that's still probably a challenge. I know from participating in the SWEEP program that my interaction with the officers there, that there are some challenges with things that are going on within the parks as far as keeping people safe. And so I think safety is another big issue and challenge as well.
A lot of area to cover, for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so for those of us that don't know, I assume that SWEEP is an acronym for something.
Sorry.
Oh, yes. So SWEEP is an acronym, and
I don't really know.
I don't even know
what it is.
Basically, it's the way I would describe it is like a neighborhood watch for the parks.
Okay,
And so volunteers in that program can participate really as little or as much as they want. And what we're asked to do is when we're out and about in the parks, if we see something of concern, that we contact the Conservation District Police and make them aware of that. So
okay.
I actually, right after Christmas, was at the Hollows. And there was a gentleman who was having some mental issues and called the Conservation Police and got him some help. So that's just an example of one of the things that we do.
Well, that's good to know.
Yeah.
And you wouldn't have any official capacity, you don't have like a sweep badge or anything like that?
No.
You're just on the name, so that when you call the Conservation Police, they know they're talking to somebody that is...
That's familiar with the program and
Yes.
the things that they might be concerned about, correct?
Okay, well, I learned something this morning.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think, do you guys meet monthly?
We do meet monthly. In fact, we have a meeting tonight. So.
And I think what they do is they talk about what the different issues are that are going out in the parks, so that when you're out, you're kind of you're
Be
kind of
more
aware
Yeah.
of what their challenges are. So it's my husband talks about it.
Okay.
Okay, nice. I didn't know they had that program.
They started it originally with the bike trails.
Oh,
They used to ride the bike trails and make certain that somebody rode them every so many days to make certain that, I mean, it's a long stretch.
right.
And there's really no way to get a car back there that you want a car back on there. So it made sense.
Yeah, no, that's good. Good. Go ahead, Carl.
Ask of the others, have you attended any of the conservation meetings or watched them on the portal?
No, I haven't.
And as you said with sweep,
Yeah.
have you familiarized yourself with the total area of the conservation and of all their little areas that they have of interest?
Yes.
Okay,
In
cool.
fact, one of the things I've been trying to do is to get out to all of the parks so that I have a better idea of, the kind of all of the things that the parks have to offer, as well as kind of the breadth of the space that the Conservation District Police are trying to cover too.
So basically, you familiarize yourself with the operation?
Yes.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, very good.
Okay.
I guess the one thing we have to tell you is that there's 6 applicants this morning.
Okay.
6 very well qualified applicants.
Sure.
So, when it gets boiled down to 1, there's no guarantees.
Okay.
So, but we should certainly appreciate your time coming in. Did Joey have something else?
I would, because of the fact that there's 6, tell us why we should pick you versus anybody else on this list.
Sure. I think primarily I would say 2 things. One is really just my passion for the parks and the outdoors and the conservation. I think I described that in the introduction. I think the other thing is my professional background. I've had a variety of different jobs in working both at Huntington Bank and my former bank. And so I've worked in operational risk, human resources, audit, operations management, and sales. And I think having that type of varied background and those skill sets would be well suited to being a good board member. So.
Thank you.
Okay, and I have one last question, I guess. With the sweep program, would you, if you were on the board, would you also continue to stay on the sweep program?
Absolutely.
And do that?
Yes.
kind of thing?
Yes,
Okay.
I'm very passionate about that.
Yeah. There wouldn't be any conflict, and I lean on Caroline a little bit here because she's on the board.
Yeah.
Or was, I guess, anyway.
Yeah,
So, is there any conflict to be on the board and to do that?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I don't know that it's happened, but I don't think so.
I think it would give me a better perspective of, understanding what's going on in the parks. There's a lot of interaction with the Conservation District Police, understanding what the issues are, so.
I think that's the best part, is just because you get a really close look at what the police officers are dealing with. Because it's a very different form of policing, so I think that's.
Yeah, it's really opened my eyes to some of the things that you wouldn't suspect are happening at the parks. You think they're a relatively safe place, and they are. But there are issues that the police are having to deal with, so I think that would be helpful in serving on the board as well.
Okay, great. Anyone else?
I did say this before, and it's not, I only say this because we do have so many qualified candidates. If it doesn't work out this time, people do come back and try again and actually get on,
Okay.
so.
Okay. I appreciate
It's a
that.
very popular.
Yeah, I
entity,
suspect.
yeah.
So yeah, we're lucky to have, like you said, 6 qualified applicants. It just makes our decision a little tougher, you know. But thank you very much for coming in.
Okay, thank you.
Somebody will be in touch with you.
Okay.
Dale in here?
We're still waiting on other candidates.
Okay.
Talk about film.
Well, it's, you know, it's
Oh, I know. Yeah.
No, I get
8:50. Yeah, I guess we've got 10 minutes. He wasn't supposed to be here till 9.
He's not supposed to be here till 9.
Yeah, no, that's all right.
Oh,
Bring him in and put him on the hot seat.
Right off the bat.
Mr. Adducci?
I just thought I was early.
Yeah.
you are.
Yeah, I'm Al
All
Adducci. Nice to meet you folks.
Yep, that's great. We appreciate you being here a few minutes early.
Sure.
Let's moving along.
Yeah.
If you'd like to introduce yourself, please, and let us know a little bit why you'd be applying for this position.
I'm Al Adducci. I live in Crystal Lake. I've been here in McHenry County for about 43 years. I'm a retired real estate broker and management guy. Served on a few other boards and commissions around town over the years. And friends of Lloyd Everard. Lloyd called me up a few weeks ago and said, hey, Al, we've got a position open. And thought that you may fit in real well with the group. I've got some nice experience that could help you along the way. So that's why I'm here in a nutshell.
Okay, sounds good. We appreciate you coming in and applying.
Sure.
Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Adducci? Carolyn?
I'll start, well, yeah, just.
Hi, Carol.
Hi, thank you for coming in.
Thank you.
And I'm sure since you've had an opportunity to talk about it, you probably already know, but just in terms of the time commitment, making sure that people are aware. It's a couple meetings in every month. It's a fair amount of reading. But their board meetings are in the evenings, so
Okay.
generally that ends up being a little bit easier. And I don't know, I've been off for a little while, but there's at least one maybe special call meeting or something like that where it's a strategic planning meeting or maybe a budget meeting or something like that. 1 or 2, I don't know, throughout the year, it depends on the year, but I mean, that could be during the day. And then I know they meet with their foundation every once in a while. That tends to be with their board meetings, so not generally another, obligation in terms of time. But those are some of the things that they do. And then they do oftentimes get out in public and try to be at events, or maybe they're hosting one, or
Sure.
somebody else is, and being that face. And it's not an obligation. Everyone has different schedules, but it is good to have somebody who's committed to being out there and being a voice for the district.
Gotcha.
And working with other agencies in the county is a great thing, because you learn more about what they need to.
Right.
Okay, so that's something you're aware of, or at least good.
Yeah, I'm basically retired as of a few years ago. So I do have the time. My wife and I do like to travel. We have children sort of spread over the states. Got a son in California who has 2 children. I've got a daughter in Denver who has 2 children. I've got a son here in Highland Park. So they're easy to see. So we do some traveling. I do have a little part-time gig at Redtail Golf Course. So I'm there a couple hours a week tops, aside from the golfing that I do there on occasion. So, but yeah, my schedule is fairly flexible, let's put it that way. So I could attend the meetings and do some of the outreach that needs to be done here. Yeah.
And so looking through, everyone was asked what the challenges are, but can you speak a little bit more to that?
What your challenges are, I don't know. I can just see it from the outside.
Right, so what do you see?
I don't see it from the inside. What I see is, from what I think basically the charge of the district is to preserve your property, restore it and maintain it over the term, and then provide educational possibilities for the public at large. Okay, so those are some of the challenges. Anytime you're a taxing body, I think you have to be super fiscally sensitive to the taxpayer. I think you're pulling in 0.1% of the DEX, your tax rate here for the conservation district. So it's not a high number, but it's a fairly high taxed county. So people are very sensitive when you're talking about that. They want to know that you're spending their money properly in the right way. And so I think you might have a little balance of some of the rural people in McHenry County and suburban type people in McHenry County. So the people that do use your facilities or don't use your facilities, why should I have to pay my tax money to the hollows where I never go there, okay? So that's very sensitive, and you guys have a big responsibility in that area.
Okay, anyone else? Carl?
Been asking,
Hi.
have you attended any of the meetings or watched them on the portal at all?
I have not.
Okay. Have you gone out and familiarized yourself with the areas of responsibility?
Many of them.
Okay.
I'll tell you one thing that I don't know if the board was responsible for this or the staff. The last couple of years, you set up this goose chase program. Super fun. I mean, my wife and I and kids have used the facilities over the years, Glacial and the Nippersink headwaters and things like that, Boger Bog, but I never really knew the extent of the facilities that the district owned and ran those properties. So getting back to this goose chase, my wife goes, hey, look at this, they're having this goose chase. It sounds like it might be fun, plus it'll get us out and about more often. And I was a little like, I really don't want to do it. But once we got into it, super fun, was really cool. We re-upped and did it the second year. It was very fun, so kudos to whoever came up with that program and managed it along the way. It's a lot of fun. And I think it really brought into view what spectacular facilities we have out in the county, so.
One final question. You wrote in there, maintaining all existing conservation areas while expanding the area footprint. Can you expand upon what you meant by expanding the footprint?
Might not have been the right terms to use,
Okay.
maybe. You may have limited footprint available in the county right now. I don't know that, I'm not on the inside, okay? But I think it is a good idea to keep eyes open, because there are gonna be people that are willing to give you land, give you certain facilities. And then I think it's very important for your group to determine if that's a viable site to take into the conservation district. Some sites can cost a lot of money. Plus, when you're taking a site into the conservation district, you're taking that site off the tax rolls, basically. So now it becomes a little more of a burden on the taxpayer, as opposed to, it was not a burden, it was a producer. So like I said, I may have misspoke there.
Okay.
Sort of, once you hit type and send, it's like,
Oops.
maybe it's not what I should have done, but can't retract it once I said it. So it may not have been the best thing to say as far as the expansion aspect of it. Because I think it could be a little bit of a touchy subject. In the
I appreciate
land.
your answer and respecting the taxing property of coming off the rolls and where's that money coming from.
Sure.
That I appreciate.
I mean, we have to be good stewards of the funds coming in here, right? And people are looking at you, so.
Is it current? Do you know how many acres the conservation district currently has?
26,000, does that sound about right? Give or take, at any moment?
I believe so.
You're in the
25.8.
ballpark.
Joe, did you have something?
Yeah,
Hi, Joe.
so, what we have is 6 people applying for 1 spot.
I heard it.
Tell me why we should pick you.
I don't know if you should. I'll tell you why. I don't know who's coming up next. I may be the first one. It's 9 in the morning, so I'm assuming I'm the first person in here. You might have wonderful, awesome, terrific candidates. So I'm not going to be so presumptuous to say I'm the best person, because I don't know who else you're talking to. But I will say, here's a few things that I can bring to the table to you. I spent most of my career, about 35 years, in the real estate business, commercial real estate. Worked mostly downtown in the city. I was one of the guys that you saw taking the train every morning over in Crystal Lake. I started out my career working for a really big real estate company out in New York and managed a portfolio of properties for them, 3 million square feet of property. So I was the general manager. There was one other guy that had about 2 million square feet. So tough guys, New York guys that could squeeze a penny. So we were put under some pretty strict budgetary constraints. So we learned how to run some really prominent buildings in the city, 1 North LaSalle, 1 North Dearborn, 360 North Michigan, on and on and on, 175 West Jackson. Big stuff. To run those buildings, I made a little bit of a tight budget. I then segued into that company, Helmsley Spear. You may have heard of the Helmsley Group in New York. They sold off all their properties in Chicago. So one of the owners came to me and said, hey, Al, we're going to sell off our portfolio. I can't guarantee you a job moving forward. You can try to stay here, you can start looking around. So I went with a group of guys that were friends of mine in the business and took over their leasing program. At that point, we had maybe 4 or 5 small office buildings. And over the 25 or 28 years I was there, we grew that into one of the largest landlords downtown. So I was really involved in the, actually I ran the leasing program for them, brought in new young guys, trained them up. So I had probably responsibility over 30 office buildings, the leasing and the negotiating all the lease deals there. As we got bigger or smaller, set certain people on to do those jobs, this jobs, and it certainly was very rewarding financially. Met a lot of great people that I worked with and for over the years. Had a lot of owners that I worked for over the years for their particular buildings, and had my own clients that I represented. Some pretty big ones, very small ones, First National Bank of Chicago, Citibank, Chicago Housing Authority, Cook County Housing Authority, on and on and on, to a lawyer that wanted to open up one office for himself. So I think I've got a real wide range of real estate experience that may help the group. So I know there's a lot of buildings that you folks manage and are looking at, is this building viable anymore, or is it not viable anymore moving forward? Additionally, as far as some local things, I was on the board of directors. I was the president of the board of the McHenry County YMCA. I did that for about 7 or 8 years. That's how I met, well, actually I knew Lloyd Everard before that. Our boys were friends in high school, grade school actually, I think. So I asked, when I became president of the board, they had not expanded in years. They didn't have a pool. They didn't have a nice weight room, so they were really sort of floundering, and they wanted to bring someone in who could help steady the ship and raise some money to expand the facility. So my first thought was, look, I need to bring in more qualified people, because I didn't think they were qualified enough. Brought in guys like Lloyd, some other folks who were accountants, knew the business pretty well, education people, and it worked out really well. So we were able to raise a lot of money and expand the facility. Another thing that I was talking about, or I was thinking about earlier today, back in the day in Crystal Lake, I don't know if you remember, George Wells was mayor at one point. He appointed me, love him or not, he appointed me to be the chairman of the Economic Development Commission for Crystal Lake. At that time, they didn't have anyone. And I couldn't quite wrap my head around when that was. It had to be in the late 90s, maybe. So I served as, yeah?
It's late 90s, yeah. George Wells was late 90s.
Okay, so I did that. I think I had a 3 or 4 year term. I worked with Joe Mizzarelli. I think maybe some of you folks remember Joe, the city manager back in the day. Great guy. And George's charge was, I'll bring some businesses into Crystal Lake. That's it, talk to you in a year. So I did that, and then George didn't run again. Bob Wagner won the next election for mayor, and then my term was up. He said, adios, Al, thanks, but I'm bringing my guys in next, which was a political thing, and I can appreciate that. So that was a very interesting thing. Some of those skills that I used there could possibly help your board here too.
Anyway, George did run. He lost to Bob by 16 votes.
Okay. Still there.
Crystal Lake history there. Okay, anyone else have any questions?
He was a good man though. He invited me over to his house and I met his wife.
I like it both.
Yeah.
It was a hard fought race.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much for coming in.
Is there any other questions? I mean, it seemed pretty short.
Well, you intrigued me by the goose chase. What in the heck is the goose chase?
It's called Find Your Wild.
Carry a stick,
Find Your Wild.
carry a gun. By gun.
So it's an app that you have to download from the county, and it has a little fun game or task that you have to do at most of the sites out there. Like find the highest point in McHenry County. And then there's some history, so you have to figure out where that is, and then go to it, take a picture of it, and then put it in. And then you get points for every task that you do. You know, fish in one of our streams, go canoeing, or climb the Kames over at,
Glacier.
yeah. So learn there's Boger Bog. I didn't know it was out there, but I hiked all through it on the boardwalk and did all those Harrison Benwell. Went to the Sugar Maple Festival out in Coral Woods and Marengo Ridge. So that's what it is. And then as you accumulate points, and then people like start checking like, what place am I? Am I in 133rd or I moved up to 32nd? But I think that there were some folks a little obsessive about it, but it was a pretty cool way to get out and actually see all the sites and, you know, go to a Revolutionary War, you know, dress up as some of the guys have. The Powell House, I think it was.
Walker Powers.
Walker Powers.
So it was a lot of
Won
fun.
some major awards, a national award and a state award. So it's
Yeah.
we had thousands of people participate.
Believe it or not, it was really fun. You know, my wife is usually the one that says, come on, Al, let's go, let's do this. She's the one that drags us out. And I'm sure that happens. And at the end of the day, I says, let's go do something. Let's go to the Hollows tomorrow. So it was great. It was great. It was a lot of fun. So.
That's good to learn about too.
Yeah.
So thank you for coming in.
Okay.
We do have some other people to interview. As Mr. Gadamoller said, there's 6 of them, and as you said, you know that there's I think all 6 of them are qualified, so.
You wouldn't have them here if they they weren't, right?
Great, so we're gonna be, you know, winding this down to one person.
Okay.
I guess, you know, sort of like, don't feel bad if it's not you, and as Carolyn has told a couple of the other ones, you know, please consider applying again if this don't work out.
Okay, great. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
I appreciate you.
Keep an eye on that website. You never know when an opening comes up.
Okay, that's how I knew it was 25,600 acres. But fluctuates. I didn't know that before. Thank you.
Thank you, Ben.
Take care, thank you.
I never heard of it before.
I think Powell Blues uses goose
I was like,
chase
a
too.
picture was
I don't know.
keeping geese out of the lake or something, like shooting these buildings. Chasing them out.
I was thinking dinner.
I think the conservation.
Welcome, Mr. Kamin.
That's correct, yes, that is me.
Okay, well, please have a seat, make yourself comfortable. Introduce yourself and let us know a little bit why you're interested in applying for this position.
Sure. My name is Kurt Kamin. I am a Marengo native, and I'm interested in this position because I think that now is a very critical time, especially when you think about the world, economically and politically speaking, to preserve and protect our native spaces.
Okay. Do you live in Marengo now?
I do, yes, North Marengo, close to Marengo Ridge.
Oh, okay. Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Kamin? Go ahead, Caroline, start us out.
I guess just want to make sure in terms of understanding the time commitment and just, whether or not, so just briefly, they meet a couple times a month in the evening, their board meetings. And there's a fair amount of reading, so it can be, there's a fair amount of prep work, but that's every month. And then throughout the year, they may have anywhere from 1 to 3, I don't know if they get to 3, but a couple, maybe 1, 2 special call meetings, maybe for like strategic planning, maybe a budget meeting, something like that, just if they need to. Those I believe could be during the day. And then they also, they're an important partner in the county, and they might host events, or they might go to events, or there might be meetings or whatever, and having representatives from the board can be helpful. Sure. Everyone has a different schedule, so not everybody can do it, but to the extent that somebody has the time, it's nice to have that representation. So that's also another opportunity with that position. So I don't know if that's going to fit within your time frame or your other obligations.
Yeah, my obligations are mostly just work, like most everybody else, right? But I do have kind of an interesting schedule in that I work Sunday through a half day on Wednesday. So that leaves the back half very open, and obviously Wednesday as well. Monday and Tuesday I do work kind of long hours. I work until 6. I'm not sure when meetings typically are, but there are also ways I can probably work with that and be a little more flexible.
Again, it was like Thursday, and is it Tuesday?
Thursday and Tuesday.
Thursday and Tuesday. Okay,
5 p.m.
5 p.m. So, okay,
So it's 5 p.m. Thursdays and Tuesdays.
yes.
Okay, that works.
Thursdays for sure, Tuesdays I'd have to flex some work time.
And then looking through, you kind of already talked about it when you came here. If you wanted to add anything more, just try to be consistent in the questions about challenges. If you know any specific challenges the district is facing, or more general, or where would you like to focus on? Where do you think the need is? Just generally, it doesn't have to.
I think outreach is very important. McHenry County is in a really interesting position in that, our population is growing, right? And we also have one of the most robust, I might even say best, conservation districts in the state. We have a lot of really excellent, high-quality, natural native spaces that we need to protect and where we can expand. So I think that the outreach and making sure that people, especially younger generations, are not only aware but are engaged is super critical. This day and age, everybody, a lot of kids, a lot of younger folks, I have a son myself, they're buried in their screens. I think there's more consciousness. They're aware that these are very important things and important spaces, but they're not as engaged. I don't think they're coming out in the way that we really need to protect things going into the future. So I think that outreach would be one of the most important things, in my opinion, to work on, which we do have a lot of really good programs that I think are excellent. I have attended a few of them myself. My son has attended a couple of camps, and those are great. Those need to keep going, but the outreach is huge. And then just managing the spaces that we have with what hopefully we can accrue and acquire in the future with the development that is going to be, it's here, right? We have to work with that. It is kind of a dichotomy where you're going to have to balance with people who are developing, people who are coming out here and maybe building industry and that sort of thing with what we need to protect and expand on ourselves as far as our native spaces are concerned.
Am I looking at Carol?
Sure. Have you attended any of the conservation meetings or watched them on the portal?
No, not recently, no. It has been a long time since I have. I worked overseas for a while and I came back and kind of traveled all over. We had a cattle operation actually in Wisconsin, but now that I'm back in the area, I'm back for good.
Or checked out their areas of responsibility within the county?
As far as like the entire county, just like, are we talking about the sites? Are we talking about programs?
The area of responsibility for the conservation. Glacier Park up to the north. Or
Oh, sure, yeah. I think
okay.
I think there are about 26,000 acres that are in stewardship. Is it 35 sites? Yeah, and I do visit them frequently. Again, I do live close to Marengo Ridge, so I'm partial to the ridge. I have it on my short list to visit Lake Elizabeth. And is it Boger or Boger Bog? Boger. I really want to go to Boger. I've been to Volo. Volo's amazing. Not obviously within our purview here, but yes, I do definitely utilize those sites very frequently with my family.
Cool.
Okay, Mr. Gedemar?
So I'm sure you've seen the list. We have 6 people, we have 1 slot. Tell us why we should pick you over the other 5.
I think I bring a lot of very diverse experiences and perspectives. I grew up farming and then got back into farming when I came back from college. And I went to the University of Iowa, which I would say that I got more into, even though I went the business route because I wanted to be responsible, right, and make money and start a family, do that whole thing. I kind of started getting more into conservation than ever. I met a lot of people who were in conservation, some of my best friends to this day, who are, and who I keep in touch with. I think that having been in China for a long time, that is of particular interest, because I've seen what happens when we don't protect and act as good stewards for our environment, when we don't have the regulations that we need and we don't have the leadership and the people who really care about what's going into our water, into our soil, into our bodies. That perspective, and I think even just me being, having been well-traveled like that, having been part of the area for a while and having grown up here, I have a lot of investment in it. But the perspective, I think, and my experiences are probably going to be very useful. I do work, as a side note, and have worked for a long time in manufacturing. So I have a good background and an idea of that and how that kind of works and plays out when it comes to conservation as well. But overall, just I would say I'm fairly well-rounded, but I do have interesting and unique perspectives on things.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Anyone else? Okay, Jim, go ahead.
Struck me when you first sat down, you talked about a critical time, and I think one of your answers here in the end might have answered that for me, but could you clarify that for me, what you mean a critical time?
Sure. It's a very divisive time. It seems like, at least if you are on the internet, nobody agrees with anything anymore. Everybody is upset with each other. Everybody wants to take things out on each other, at least virtually, right? It's a critical time to interact with people in a face-to-face capacity, because that's the only way you're going to get anything done. That's the only way you're going to be able to get any points across. That's the only way you're going to actually build bridges and realize, hey, I'm talking to another human being. Politically speaking, I think from a federal standpoint, right, regardless of any political affiliations that people have, funding, right, is going to be an issue for a lot of different places, a lot of different realms. And I have seen that there were cuts in forestry and a lot of industries that are kind of parallel to that. A lot of jobs, a lot of layoffs have been occurring. So I'm not sure where that might affect McHenry County Conservation District. But if there was any interplay with federal funding at any point, I would say that now is probably going to be a poor time to get funding from them in the future going forward here.
Okay, so then your thoughts of how this would relate to the conservation district. You mentioned about your job and work history. You're in manufacturing presently?
I am, yes.
Okay.
I am a supervisor at General Mills in Doyle here.
Okay. So that would allow you would be able to change that time on Tuesday for you? If you
I can
had to?
flex occasionally, yes.
Occasionally?
Occasionally. I won't be able to do it all the time.
Okay. All right. I have no
Okay.
questions. Thank you.
Anyone have anything
Thanks
else,
for
Henning?
coming today.
Absolutely.
Okay, well, as I was mentioned before, we have 6 very qualified applicants for one position.
Sure. Well, I appreciate you guys taking the time and considering me for this role.
Okay, thank you very much for coming in.
Thank you, guys. Have a good
Thank
one.
Back to Michelle.
There it is.
Morning.
Hello.
Morning.
Mr. Henning, and I don't know if you've been here before on this, but
Have been.
please have
Good to be here again.
make yourself comfortable, introduce yourself, and let us know why you'd want to be applying for this position.
I'm John Henning. I live in the Marengo area. My family's lived there for several generations. I farm in that area. I've been on the Board of Trustees previously. I enjoyed being there. I learned a lot and hope I contributed. I like to have a positive impact on our community, and I think the Conservation District is a long-term way of having that impact, and I would like to contribute once again.
Okay. Thank you. Carolyn, did you want to go ahead?
Well, we've been talking about time commitment, but I know you know that, so we've got any reason to,
I'm well aware of that, yeah.
I think you really realize that already,
You-
so,
You don't think that's diminished any in the last several years, I'm
No,
sure.
I'm sure you know exactly what the time commitment is.
I mean, a lot of our questions were time commitment and if you've attended meetings, obviously, so.
Yeah, stuff like that. And if
So
you
you
looked up,
water.
yeah, if you looked at the meeting or something.
Yeah, so your interview might be a little bit shorter. But you were on it, explain to me a little bit, not ever being on the board. Was there like a term limit that you had to get off? You got off for some reason?
You're a 1 year, 5 year term, and then at the end of that term, you need to leave and you can come back a year later
If you'd like to.
if all of you deem that to be a good idea.
So you would have, if there wouldn't have been that in the rules, you would have stayed on?
Yes, I believe so.
Believe so.
Although I don't think a time off is a bad thing, but no, I think I would have.
It's actually state statute.
Oh,
It's
Yeah.
not a local rule. This is the,
Okay.
when they created conservation districts, they created this rule that says you've got a 5-year term and you're off. You can come back, but you have to be off.
Okay, I've probably been told that before. Okay, so you farm around Marengo? And
I do.
I know I talked to you the last time I was here.
I haven't. We farm from just a few miles south of the Wisconsin line down to Genoa and DeKalb County. We're more of a north-south. My brother and I farm about 3,200 acres.
Okay, I think the last time you were here, and probably got this, my memory's not as good as it used to be, but there's you got the farming, you got the conservation district, and then you got the conservation district land that they run out for farming.
Right.
And do you rent any of that
I
currently?
do rent one farm that we sold, well, actually two, but we sold a farm to the conservation district probably 30 years ago. And then we put in there that we would rent it back for a period of time. We exceeded that period of time, but we can still farm that piece of property, yes. It's been no-tilled ever since the day even before we sold the conservation district. We feel that we farm it with a lot of good practices. And I know I was just there the other day setting the planter up, and we dig out the kernels to see how deep we're planting. And Brenna, that runs the agricultural part of it, she told me that she goes out and does worm counts, and that farm had more worms than anything else she found. When I was digging, every kernel I dug out had a worm next to it. So I felt like we're doing a good job of environmentally for that farm.
Yeah, okay, so when you sold it to the conservation district, you had it built into the contract that you could
Farm it for 3 or 4 more years, but then we've renewed the lease many times since then.
Okay, is that a blind lease or bid?
Pardon me?
Is it some kind of bid process or?
No, it's the same way they do all the rest of them, that they go and meet with a farmer and put a rent agreement together. And it's the same as it's always been that way. That's how the district does that. The Brennan Ness now runs the agricultural part of it, and she goes out and meets with you, and they actually, when I was there, we put a procedure in place that we'd hire someone like Brennan that would go in and keep track of the yields, and we would have soil sampling done by the farmers. There was no soil sampling done before that. And so, you know, we have some people that think maybe none of the conservation district land should be farmed. Some people think that it should be. But I felt that we should, if we're gonna farm the conservation district land, we should at least supply them with information of how that land is being taken care of, that we're not over fertilizing or under fertilizing, and that it's being farmed appropriately. And I think that's what's been done. And when she does that, then she analyzes that as what the rent could be. If a farmer gives up a piece of land, then it goes out for bid.
Okay,
So if
maybe
I would stop farming it, then they would put out for bid for everybody. Or if I couldn't come to terms with her, if she says it should be this much and I think it should be this much, we'd part ways and then it would be put out for bid.
Okay, that's probably what I was thinking of at that point. So I appreciate you explaining that. Anybody else have any? Go ahead, Carl.
Sure. Since you've been there, separate, you know, gone for a year, if
Well, it's
you're.
been about 3 years, I think, that's since I've been gone.
And if you're afforded to be back on, what are your 2 top priorities that you saw when you were there, had to leave, but looking at it, that you want to get accomplished and fix?
I don't think that I'm trying to fix anything, really. I don't go on a board, I've served on several boards, I don't go on a board with the idea that I have this one thing
or to help.
I do not have, I don't want to be a 1-issue person or a 2-issue person. I like to just look at things, and I think a board of trustees takes in the information that the director and the people there give you, and you ask questions and try to come to a good way of allocating the resources you have, whether it be the financial or the people that work there or whatever. You want to take into account what that is and try to make best use of what you have. And I think we did that.
Okay, Joe, did you have anything?
Just because you know the process and you've been through this before, and we've got 6 people, tell us why you should be it, not one of the other 5.
Well, I don't know the other 5. They may be.
I understand, but just tell me why we should pick you.
Well, okay, just why you should. I think I farm all around that land. I'm out on the land every day. I know the community. I know the county. I think I have I think I know what's good for those things. But it's not just about land. It's about you know, education, and it's about all the other things. I think one of the things that the conservation has a little bit of an issue with, and I don't know that I have the answer, is that they own some buildings that people want to have, you know, taken care of and restored, and I think that's a big issue for them out there, and it's been hanging there, and that's something I think we totally addressed because we didn't have the money to take care of it at that time. But I think I have a good feel for what goes on in McHenry County and what's good for McHenry County. But I don't know those other 5 people, so they may be every bit as good or better than I am. I don't know.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. And as Joe said, we got 6 qualified applicants.
Met a few of them in the hallway that seem like very good people. So
thank you very much for coming in.
A lot of good choices.
Yep,
so
we'll let you know.
That's it, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, John.
Get out there and work today.
I'm going out to plan something right now.
Getting into some good conversations.
They're all good.
Sometimes they
They're all
fly
good.
right. Huh?
They're all good.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Please have a chair and get comfortable, introduce yourself, and let us know why you're interested in this, applying for this position.
Thank you. Well, nice to be here this morning. Thank you so much for having me.
It was a gorgeous drive up here today, so I hope we can all find time to get
Just
outside.
bring that weather every
So
time you
beautiful.
come, okay?
Yes, oh my gosh, and my phone took me a different way up from Oakwood Hills today, and it was stunning. But anyway, nice to see you all, thank you for having me. My name's Heather Brady. As I just mentioned, I live in Oakwood Hills, a small village tucked right between Cary and Crystal Lake, which I'm sure you all know. I didn't until a couple years ago when we moved here. I'm originally from Pennsylvania, outside Philadelphia. I grew up close to Amish country, which was very similar to McHenry County, lots of ag, lots of outdoor time growing up. And then I lived in New England for a time, and then Maryland, Annapolis, Maryland, for about 10 years. And that's where I met my husband, and he's from Schaumburg and has a lot of family out here. My sister-in-law happens to be from Crystal Lake, and my husband happened to be from Schaumburg. So we've all sort of ended up out here in the northwest suburbs of Chicago, which makes us really happy to be all close together. My parents moved out as well when we moved here. But to back up a little bit, in Maryland, I worked and still work for the Chesapeake Bay Foundation. And when we moved to be closer to family a couple years ago, I was granted somewhat rare permission to continue working virtually for the Chesapeake Bay Foundation outside of the Bay region, which is Pennsylvania, Maryland, Virginia, and DC. And so I periodically travel back to the East Coast for events, but I work out here. A little bit about CBF, just so you have some context for what I do professionally. CBF is the Chesapeake Bay Foundation is the largest watchdog organization working to save the Chesapeake Bay. We have a staff of 220 people, a budget of about 30 million, mostly privately funded. And we work to save the Bay through restoration, advocacy, litigation, and education. So kind of a big player in certainly the Chesapeake Bay space and in watershed resilience, and looked at as a model of watershed resilience across the country and even globally. So it's a great place to work. Specifically, I support our president and our chief philanthropy officer, as well as our senior team of 9 VPs that report to our president, our chief philanthropy officer, and our 30-person fundraising team, and our 50-person board of trustees, and all the committees that feed into the board. So that is just a little bit about what I do for my work, why I applied for this role. I am looking to get more involved with where I now live and where my family and I will be living for a long time. I'm looking to get to know where I live more and make a meaningful contribution to this area and this county. I mentioned this in my materials, but I've been incredibly impressed with just the amount of conserved spaces in this county and the remarkable kind of legacy of this 50-plus year conservation district. And the impact that it's clear is being made. So I'd love to help contribute to that success. I think I have a lot to offer from my experience with a pretty high caliber nonprofit environmental organization. And you know, this is for me and for all of us, and also for my kids. I have almost 3-year-old boy-girl twins, and we're outside all the time, and that's a huge part of how my husband and I are looking to raise our kids, is having them away from screens and outdoors, and you know, getting their hands dirty and their feet wet in the rivers and creeks and all that. So we've taken them to Felpro, RRR, we've taken them to the Hollows. We have a lake and a fen in Oakwood Hills, and so it's been nice to get outside. I'll pause there.
Okay, great. Carolyn, did you want to start?
Yeah, one of the things we talked about, and it sounds like you may have some flexibility in your time. So it's just being aware of the time commitment and the number of meetings, a couple each month. They're on Thursdays and Tuesdays, but in the evenings, so you're aware of that.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep, I'm prepared to take that on and able to commit to that.
Okay.
I don't do too much else right now. You know, I work and I have my family and I'm in a book club, but you know, my kids are still little, so now is a good time because they're not doing, you know, a million sports and plays and things like that. So yes, I can take on the time commitment.
Okay, and then they may have some day meetings, like, or maybe a special call meeting if the budget or, you know, strategic planning or something like that. And then the other thing might be is it's a very important organization in the county, so they're out they either host an event or attend events, or you know, there might be meetings with other, you know, officials and that sort of thing. And so having that presence and being out there is important too. And it's not an obligation, but it's certainly helpful.
I'd love to participate in as much as I can, and I'm very fortunate that my job is completely flexible hours. And that's the case for our whole organization, not just me working virtually. So we can kind of flex our time and accommodate life, which is nice.
Good, okay, that's great. And so, and as you've looked, one of the questions we asked everybody was more of like, looking at the conservation district, do you see certain challenges or, you know, things that you realize that maybe that they could be improved on or whatever? What do you think is facing the district at this time, if you know?
Well, from what I've read with some of the strategic planning materials and the budget, it sounds like there was a letter in one of the magazines that talked about how the conservation district has sort of been in a winter phase and is coming into the spring. And so there was sort of like a survival mode going on through COVID and now looking for growth. And so in that vein, I would be curious, you know, what the board, what the executive director thinks about just the financial security for the conservation district, and how to explore and what the opportunities are within the, you know, restrictions of this being a conservation district and certain statutes in place. What are the opportunities for diversifying some revenue? And what are the opportunities with the Conservation Foundation, you know, coming from a large philanthropy team? That's sort of where my mind goes first. I think there's a lot of competition right now for dollars, for resources. Who knows what kind of trickle down we'll have from federal changes, from state changes with the new administration. And so I would want to explore what the opportunities are for whether it's corporate sponsors or how the event fees and camp fees are structured, things like that. I'd be curious to learn more about that and see what opportunity there is for diversifying revenue. And I think a challenge that's natural for an entity like the Conservation District and other similar organizations is risk prevention. So there's this incredible wealth of assets with all of these sites and buildings and, you know, thousands and thousands of residents enjoying them. How do you make sure that everything is safe and sustainable and run in a way that mitigates any risk of injuries, damages, you know, risks of increasing storms and impacts of climate change. So how do we shore up the sort of infrastructure of the Conservation District so that we have every confidence as a board that it's thriving 50 years from now? I think it's the responsibility of a board to support the executive director and the staff in their day-to-day work, but also keep that long-term picture in mind.
Okay.
I don't know if that answers your
question.
Yeah,
no, it does, it does. And I was going to say something, because Carl was going to ask a question, but I think he'll be back in a minute when he gets it done.
Okay.
Yeah, before I do that, and in case he doesn't, you mentioned wetlands and watersheds.
Yeah.
Watersheds and the importance of watersheds. And so it seems like because Chesapeake Bay is a watershed, that you would bring a lot of information, because we have quite a few, we have our major watersheds. We just redid our storm water management ordinance and that sort of thing. So here for the county. So you have a lot of experience in that.
Yeah, the Chesapeake Bay is a really fascinating sort of model of restoration work. And it's, I imagine, similar to McHenry County, where the land to water ratio is quite distinct. There's a lot of land that has a significant impact on waterways, especially from ag. So yeah, the science is fascinating. The Chesapeake Bay is fun to work on because it's sort of big enough to matter and have a big footprint on the environmental landscape, but it's small enough to feel like you can make a difference. And so I think that's a nice way of looking at things like county-wide. It's big, but you also have these projects within it where you can make a difference in a smaller scale. So yeah, the science is fascinating, and I'm happy to bring whatever resources and lessons learned and challenges and things like that to this table as well.
Okay, sounds good. And then I think, because as soon as I said it, I went out of my mind. And you kind of addressed it. He was asking if you've been to, he was asking, have you attended any meetings? Sounds like you've already looked at maybe the budget, maybe the strategic plan, but have you listened in on any of the meetings or that sort of thing?
I watched the last couple on YouTube. I should have tuned in live in preparation for this, but I couldn't. So I watched the last couple on YouTube. I combed over the website. There are fantastic resources. I love the transparency portal link that just takes you to everything you could possibly need with budgets and strategic planning. I think that's really effective. So yeah, I've been able to really dig in, which has been fun. And it's impressive, all that is on the website and all that's in place already. And really the expertise of the staff and the board and the 50 years of history, I think, is very evident in the resources that are available. But yeah, I'm sure you have candidates who have done more with the Conservation District than I have so far in just my 2 short years here. But I'm excited to get to more sites and more events and continue to get to know everything.
Thank you.
Okay.
No, well, Carl just come in and we did ask the question about attending meetings.
We still have questions, Carl.
And
Yeah.
yes, she has looked at some meetings and looked at the materials. So anyway, go ahead.
Go ahead, Joe.
So we've got 6 people applying for 1 spot.
Okay.
Right. Tell us why we should pick you versus the other 5, or what your expertise is. I would add 1 twist to it, or 2 twists to it. One is I've actually sailed on the Chesapeake Bay. I don't know if anybody else there has, but I have.
Nice.
Long ago, but it's a beautiful part of the world.
Yeah.
The other is that have you looked at the foundation board? Because there is a foundation board with this, that you wouldn't be on both, but you have foundation board expertise that probably nobody else in the county has. And
I didn't look at that, so thank you for pointing that out. That's an interesting thought, yeah. But to answer your question, since I'm in this hot seat right now, I think that I have a unique perspective to offer with my professional background of working for a very sophisticated, high budget, leading environmental organization, and specifically leading the executive wing of it with a large, high-functioning board that has a lot of demands on it. I had another thought. Let me see if it will come back to me. But yeah, I think that hopefully you might see that could give me an edge with what I could bring to the table here, while also having a very open mind, being new to the area. So I'm not coming in with any preconceived notions of how things should be done. I think that could be a nice sweet spot of coming in with a lot of knowledge, but an open, curious mind. And I think I'm a good addition to a team. I love being on a team. I work with a very high level of integrity in everything that I do. I'm very dependable, very transparent, and I love being part of a team that's contributing to something meaningful and positive. I think that's kind of what life is about, and that's why I'm a nonprofit professional, and that's why I'm looking to get more involved. So I would bring a lot of teamwork and passion and heart to it, and curiosity.
Thank you.
Okay, great. Does anyone else have anything? Well, thank you very much for coming in. As was mentioned, we have 6 very qualified candidates, so it's going to be a little tough choice for us.
Yeah.
And then, like I said, appreciate you coming in, and we'll let you know.
Thank you. It's a
you.
good problem to have. I hope it's a hard decision for you. Thank you.
Have a good
Take
day.
care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Okay, that was our last interview, correct?
It's Scott's rushing up there for the wait for us.
Oh, boy.
It's been a while. I saw this again, and I'm like, oh, this is a whiteboard opportunity.
Okay, we're going to move on to 5.7, deliberation and selection for applicant to recommend to the county board chairman. So I'm going to go to the other end of the table because I hate to miss this whiteboard stuff. Right. And I'm also going to put the Conservation District liaison, that is part of our committee, on the spot there.
Yes, sir.
Why don't you, if you want to start us off with some of your comments, we're going to discuss every one of them before we have a resolution to place the recommendation.
Sure. So I felt all 6 candidates were, one thing that they had, they all like being outdoors. They all want to be a part of either some of them learning more about it, but all really have just an aspiration to be outside and be amongst all the sites. The one that stuck out to me, I thought, was John, because he's got the background, and me just being a liaison. Potentially our administration, our head administrator might be leaving in 2 or 3 years. She's got a 3-year deal. But what does that look like, and how can that board get past that transformation, transfer of power, if you will? And so I'm thinking someone that has good knowledge of the board currently would be a good asset for the transfer.
Yeah, no, that's valid.
But I think all in all, they're all really good candidates. I think it was well vetted.
Okay, Carl, do you want to?
If we had to go 1, 2, or 3, I've got.
Yeah, go ahead. Any way you want to do it. We're just open conversation right now.
Okay.
Paul, did you want to put a second there, or?
I think the last candidate, Heather, was really,
Okay.
but I think like Joe says, maybe there's another board she would be better.
Okay, I'm sorry to interrupt, Carl. I just wanted to-
Hey,
Paul, it's Paul's, we're sort of new to this process. I want to make sure he got his
2 cents.
chance.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that.
Little 1 for John. 2 for Mr. Hammer. And a 3 for Mr. Doyle.
Number 2 for Mr. Hamm.
Yeah.
Okay, any reasoning, Carl, that you want to expound on?
For John, being that he's seen what, and been on the board, seeing what was going on, having the separation, but to get him back on there where there's no learning experience or training or whatever, he comes in ready to go to work.
Okay, that's good. Joe?
My turn? Okay, I first off would agree that everybody up on everybody we had here today, I don't think there's a single person that could not do the job. I mean, and, you know, sometimes you get something and you go like, this isn't gonna work. That's not what we have here. I will tell you that I also try to look at this as what I think a board could use. Heather, I will readily admit, surprised me. I looked at her resume and thought it was interesting, but I didn't really think about the Chesapeake Bay and those ties as being a more foreplay for here. I know John Henning, I know Alan Adducci, I didn't know the other three beforehand, but you know, I would have to say if I just had to pick one person, I would actually put Heather on this board. I think she brings something to the table that we don't have available to us. And I think, and I will say, if she doesn't go on this board, we should call her immediately and try to get her on the foundation board. She knows where money's at that we don't know about. But that was it. As far as the others concerned, John Henning I've known for probably 25 years. He's an excellent candidate. Alan Adducci, when I start talking about George Wells and Bob Wagner, it goes back a long time. I think both of those would be good. I would probably put Alan before I'd put John. John has been there before, and I agree he could start from square one and it'd be fine, but my third choice would be John.
Okay. That it, no?
Yeah, I think that, I'm happy with whoever we pick on this group.
Yeah, that's easy. So we're gonna skip back across to Dina and see what you think.
This was like amazing to have so many candidates
They're
interested
good.
in this position. I'm thinking, wow, don't let any of these people get away. To mirror Joe's conversation about Heather, I wonder if she would be a better fit for the foundation board. She interviewed just amazingly. And her candor and her tenaciousness did not go unnoticed for me at all. And she's in my voting district, so I will be calling her regardless because I think she's just an amazing human being. With that being said, I think John, coming from his experience, would be my number one. Him being a farmer, him having this understanding is important. And what's interesting is that this transition might be a forecast ahead. So that I didn't know that, and I think thank you for sharing that because that's of value, knowing that things are going to be, shifting. Heather would be my number two person. Gosh, I wish we had two openings because they would be an obvious, but I think for sure she would be outstanding for. I didn't even know there was a position available, Joseph, on the foundation.
Well, I don't know if there is right now
should
either,
make
but
Okay.
I would find a way to get her there.
Yes.
Yeah, all right. So I'm gonna interrupt and ask Adam, the makeup of the conservation board right now, or maybe we have an audience member that knows, or there's some farmers already on the board?
You know what, I'm not sure.
I think you're about out of it.
Well, yeah, Chris is gonna be leaving, Chris Dom.
Nobody with the experience that John has from a farming perspective.
Yeah.
I will say that there's been John was a bit of an antagonist on the board. I don't know if that's fair to say, but it's my perspective anyway.
That's your perspective.
Oftentimes, the farming community and the conservation district are at opposite ends. And I'll give you an example. Drain tiles are a big issue. Farmers want drain tiles to, understandably, to control the fields and the moisture. The conservation district is trying to preserve wetlands. So that, you get some diametrically opposed situations at sometimes. So, John's a bright guy. He was the president when I came in, so I know he's a good leader. But I will say, I think he was at odds with most of the members of the rest of the board.
Okay. There's probably some of us up here that think that's a good thing. Okay, thank you for that input. Appreciate it. For some reason, I thought somebody told me there was 3 other farmers or something on the board.
There wasn't one time.
That's true, but they rotated.
Okay. Thank you for the clarification. Thank you, Dina, for your comments, and we'll move on to Carolyn.
Okay, so I agree, this was a hard decision, and just to clarify a little bit in terms of the coverage for, when we talk, Joe had kind of hit on it a little bit, like we think about what the expertise is on the board. And yes, Chris is rolling off. Chris's primary business is trucking, but he also farms, so he is very tied to the farming community as well. And we've had at least one, for a couple of years, we had three. We've had at least one, then two, then three, and then two, then one farmer on the board for the last 8 years. So it's been well represented. We haven't had, there's nothing that says we have to have a farmer on the board. Obviously, it's a good fit in terms of land use and everything else. And John was able to speak to the farm leases. I mean, they don't actually have them go out for bid every year because they allow the person who's currently farming to continue farming if they would like, or if they don't, then they go out. So there's a lot of value there. We did bring in Bonnie Leahy last year, who was also on the board before. There's only one position open this year. We invite people in every year. It's always good to get new ideas and new focus. And so, well, I think John obviously served his time, we served together, worked well together. Overall, I think that this is a kind of a transitional time for the board, and having somebody come in with a new perspective, maybe getting somebody else. We've got HR represented on the board already. Two things, I was really impressed with Heather. I thought she came in very strong. I don't know that as individuals, because I thought the same thing about the foundation, but I would really feel uncomfortable deciding for her where she would rather spend her time. I could see her being fantastic on the foundation, but she might want to do something a little bit different, and this might be a good fit for her. I think that her perspective, a board that size and being able to manage it and understanding the dynamics of boards and what is needed, her knowledge of the environment, especially watersheds, which is a huge thing for us here in this county. So I put her number one. I feel like and getting back to what I was saying about, I mean, if the idea of, yes, we are in a transition. Bonnie was on years and years ago when there was that transition back then. She was actually asked to be on there to help with that transition. So she's going to be a great asset to their board over the next 3 years, to your point. But I don't know that having another person who's already been on the board to drive that when we're trying to move in a new direction. So I would then either be Heather, or I thought Alan was interesting in that he was, so he would be my number two. They really do have an issue with real estate, and I understand that Alan dealt with a lot of like city real estate and those kinds of things, but that's a big issue for them, and that was something we were unable to deal with when I was on the board because we didn't have the money. And the only reason why some buildings that were historical in value didn't come down is because we didn't have the money to take them down. So it's going to be good to have somebody on there who can actually finally make those decisions. What's worth saving? What isn't worth saving? We've got 2 buildings on Fox Bluff, 2 that are important. So it's going to be understanding what to do with those and that sort of thing. So I thought he brings an interesting perspective, and I thought that there were other things that he talked about that he was involved in that added to not just the real estate, but kind of the, I can't get to it now, but he had some other HR experience with those other corporate experience that I thought was financial in nature that was good for the board. Then I was actually not surprised, but I thought Bryan Doyle had some interesting things to say, his background, so he would be my number 3.
I got a question before we go on. Just, the foundation and the conservation board are separate, but is there a liaison from the county board on the foundation then?
Yeah, currently it's Lloyd.
Okay.
Yeah, And likely Bonnie going forward.
Bonnie next, okay.
Okay.
And their board appoints that board. So the Conservation District appoints the foundation board.
Okay.
And what's the turnover of the foundation board?
They've got 9 on now, they can hold up to 11. There was some real longevity for a long time, but we've got newer members now. So we've got,
3 new members in the last 12 months.
yeah. So it's a mix of people who've been on for a while, but some of the long time people are no longer on. I think we've got one who's been on for a while, but otherwise it's either newer or more midterm, like maybe 3 years, 5 years.
So they usually voluntarily leave, or
Yes.
are they asked to leave?
Oh, no, everyone who left was voluntary. But, like, yeah, the last.
So they could stay on forever?
But they have to reapply.
They have to reapply, okay.
I
So
think it's a 3-year thing, you gotta go reapply, so they have to say yes again.
Okay.
So they have the option to say no.
But one gentleman who rotated off about 2 years ago, I think he was on for like 20 years. He just kept.
Right, but they also that was a time when they were trying to get starting and just there weren't a lot of interests to replace them.
Okay.
So,
go ahead, Jim.
So I want to ask a couple of questions too. What do you mean by new direction?
No, it's just more of, there's just, I don't know, just new, I mean,
is there a set new direction, or it's just you see it as going in a different direction?
no, I think it's just fresh new ideas, things that we haven't really thought about because we have the same people who are on. We've had people who have been on for 10 years, or whatever, and
okay.
Not that that's necessarily a bad thing, because people can because that experience can come back and help stabilize things. I just mean that they now have, the referendum has passed. It's not like they can start doing all these things. They're not gonna do a lot of land acquisition, but they are gonna be able to start using that capacity to restore those sites. And we talk about access. There are places where they should be access. We talk about Fox Bluff has had a master plan for years, and they haven't been able to do anything with it. And they've had past ideas about what to do with it, but it would be good to have somebody who might just come in and bring an idea that people haven't even thought about before.
And the new referendum that passed will allow that to happen?
It was really designed, the primary driver, and you guys correct me, but my understanding, the primary driver was to, in the past, the bonds were for land acquisition. Now the important thing is to start maintaining and getting it back into restoration and opening up some of these sites that have been kind of dormant because they haven't had the funds to do it.
And we've foregone a lot of maintenance.
Right.
That's what these buildings become such an issue.
So they'll be able to maintain buildings now with the new funding though, some of them?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, okay, I'll move on to that. The last question I have though is when is the next appointment coming up?
Next year.
It'll be
It's a
next
whole
year at the same time.
Same time next year.
And there's one coming up.
Okay.
I think it'd be 2.
Yeah,
No,
I
it's
think-
one.
Is it one next time, and then we go back to 2?
Then
Okay.
2.
Then I'll go on with my picks and everything. Again, all great, as we went down each candidate, I kind of wrote some notes and did different things to myself, and then I would get to a yes or a question mark and a no, and then go back and make changes on it and everything. Again, I'll say, the last candidate, Heather, really surprised me. And I do think, I'd love to be able to pick 2 of them, but I know we can't. And again, I would immediately say, and it looks like there is room for that foundation if they can go up to 12. I'd put her on that as a placeholder, so you know she's my number 2. I'd put her there as a placeholder to keep her involved in the conservation district. And maybe she finds a home there that really is beneficial for us, for the conservation district. But she's one that you certainly don't want to let get away from you. So then I'll go up. I did also like Bryan Doyle. I know he was up there. But Bryan Doyle is my third. Heather was my number 2.
And your number 1,
And my number 1 is going back to John Henning for a few reasons, and I'll give these reasons because I didn't ask John any questions, because I didn't ask a lot of questions to people today unless something really stuck to me. And John answered my questions on the farmland, because I always worried about that a little bit, that he farmed some of the land. But his answer today really made me feel good about that, actually, instead of being concerned about it. That the stewardship and the conservation, and also they brought some oversight to all those properties with the soil test and different things. So that got me over the one negative I had about him. He also talked about the building, that they never had the money on the buildings and all that. And I've personally jumped on John in a couple instances about, and you guys have heard me make those statements, when the Conservation District was before us a couple times, about these building sites that some of them were just show places at one time, and then they're just becoming decrepit. And you might as well have at some point, you might as well invite the fire department out to have a burn party. And that they've been deteriorated so much. And I've always said, I don't know why they didn't take 10 acres off of those parcels and just sell them off and let somebody maintain them. And that, I've always had an issue with that. That we buy these properties and then we let the buildings go. Now, it sounds like there's, with the new referendum that passed, that there is a solution for that. That they'll be able to maintain those, or take down the ones that are beyond repair, because there are some that are beyond repair. And also, sometimes you're throwing good money after bad too. So
okay, well.
Now, I like John's fact that he was off for 3 years, took the time off to watch things, and then wanted to come back. And I've talked to some of the old people who've been on the board, and this is, why don't you just go back on it? And you kind of get an answer, being a cold day in hell, they want to go back to that. But for John wanting to come back, that probably is my number 1 reason why I would pick John. I want to keep this Heather in the loop somehow, and I think the foundation would be the way to go. She seemed at hand for today, but it caught her attention when you mentioned that.
Okay. We've got a pretty good round of what we're sort of going to. I like John Henning because he does cause a little angst between the farmers and the Conservation District. But don't write anything down yet, Scott. I gotta tell you, Heather just blew me away. If I walked into a room and she was my competition for an interview, I would be like, what the heck am I doing here? So I just can't, she's like, I'll go with some new ideas, as Carolyn said. Talk about setting up some long-range plans so that the Conservation District will still be thriving 50 years from now. Team integrity, transparency. I mean, she used all the right words, handles a $30 million budget, and works with how to deal with it when there's shortfalls. That just all blew me away. So I'm just gonna say, while I think John is good, actually Jared Hamm, when he said, get the current properties up and running so the public could get there, as opposed to buying and expanding on the land. That's the type of stuff I like to hear personally. But still, Heather just blew me away. So
This is brutal.
By the way, I agree with you. I did not, I read these in order when I went through them, and I'm like, well, that's interesting, whatever.
Same.
Hands down, she was the best interview here today.
With that said though, Joe, the best interviewer doesn't always make the best person to do it. I've had a couple interviews in my business and I was, that put that person right there. And it was a mistake. Go ahead, Carolyn.
No, I want to build on something because, and I think we've all talked about this and where would she fit? Personally, I don't think we should make that decision for her. She was here today to interview for this position.
I won't argue that.
Right.
I agree with you.
Her best spot would be on the board as liaison to the foundation.
Correct, and the other thing
No
is,
offense.
and the other thing is this.
You are right.
If she were to decide that wasn't, she gets there and decides it's not her wheelhouse and she wanted to move over to the foundation, she certainly would be able to do that. But she's here to interview for this position. I mean, think about how often we have people come in and it's an uncomfortable thing. She was on, because she knew exactly what she wanted. She knew she had the background and she really did a great presentation. So I do think that if we are all this supportive of her, I feel really bad to say, well, no, you should really be over at the other place. She came to interview here, so I'm going to throw that one.
I would make no presumption to tell her what position she should run for.
Correct.
We do have, there's 4 number 1s at Mr. Henning's, and rightfully so. But still open for discussion. Anybody want to jump in?
I want to put one last plug in here. When we talk about antagonist a little bit, and then the conversation about drainage tiles came up, being on the stormwater and being part of the farm community on both sides here. I understand both sides of it, but I really don't like the conservation district with the drainage situation that that they need to be willing to work. And we need somebody in the farm who understands I gotta have my fields drained and that. And we need to have that voice in there still. That voice has to remain on that board. And the only people who bring that are the farmers, in my opinion. They're the only ones who bring that. And our agriculture is our number 1 commodity in this county. And if we let that go because of land preservation and then say, okay, we want to flood everything, we don't want to fix the tiles because those farm fields that are on the conservation district aren't the only ones being drained. It's everything upstream from it flows through that. So, and I know there's some battles in this county coming in the future, maybe won't even exist then, when it comes to drainage and keeping creeks and dredging and a lot of that goes through drainage, through conservation districts and that's a battle that's going to come down. And I think we still need some voice of reason when it comes to that as an agriculture person. So with that, I would nominate John Henning. I move to nominate John Henning.
Can I just add to your comment?
Some more conversation?
Okay.
If that would be okay. Because I think that the conservation district has to, I agree that there's tension regarding the drain tile, but they have a representation on the TAC committee for the Stormwater Management Commission. They do have to abide by, the districts that are established, and they are bound by how their land impacts other land with regards to tiles. So I think
they don't tear the beaver dam out. Conservation doesn't take the beaver dams out, and that's flooding properties. So that would be my battle.
Okay, but you've had 3 farmers, you've had farmers on for the last 8 years. So I think the whatever has been going on, you've had that there has been that representation, and I think that and if the problems continue to exist, I don't think it's because a lack of representation. It's those issues need to get resolved with the different parties. So I feel like we've got a very strong candidate in somebody who's bringing a fresh vision, who's very enthusiastic, and there will be opportunities to have other people get back on the board later if they would like to do that in terms of we want to have that representation. If we don't have the farm representation for 1 year, I'm not sure doesn't mean they're not going to have a voice as to what the district does. This is an opportunity to bring somebody in with a really dynamic, fresh vision and really ready to hit the ground running. So I don't know. I'm just really excited about Heather, and so.
Great conversation.
Okay.
Great conversation to have.
All right.
I think she definitely threw a curveball. I read her resume, and I knew she was gonna come in pretty strong just based on the tone of her resume. I am blown away. I think, we're talking about merit of experience, right, and vision, and I think, it sounds like some contention with this very specific topic, and I think the knowledge is, for me, essential, because I'm listening to you and I'm thinking, well, that's really interesting. I mean, I have an experience on, or Heather's perspective, this, but maybe not so much that. And so, I think we are at that juxtaposition. I still do value the experience on this specific topic, because even if I was, fresh, and I would need that knowledge. So I'm with you on that, with that respect of this topic is essential, and that experience feels like it lands really, really of value in this position. So, and it is challenging because these are they're matched for me. You have fresh perspective, and you have experience, and you're like, which do we go with? And so, I'm still gonna go with my initial, but I don't want to see Heather get away. So where she goes, how we say, how do we keep you engaged? Let her make that choice. Whether she wants to do foundation or not, maybe she didn't know about that, but I think we keep all of these people engaged because they seemed amazing.
Yeah, they're all good.
So.
Yeah. Okay.
This is the toughest battle that we've ever had on.
I'm so happy to be part of this.
For me, as the chairman sitting up here, I like to see us all go in one direction at the end of this vote so that there's not somebody voting no for anybody up there, because they are all good people. They're all good candidates. But we'll see what happens. Carolyn, one more time?
No, I was just saying, well, then can I nominate Heather?
I get one more chat, because Paul, being the liaison to the Conservation District, do you have one last thing you want to feed into? Or if you don't, it's okay.
No, I think both of them, just getting to know the people that are on the board right now. Like what Jim says, there wouldn't be any representation, and of course, Carolyn Einstein, maybe it doesn't need to be represented for a year. But what are the odds next year that, John will want to do it? I think he's the most ready, qualified guy to go in and represent just the farmers. Plus, he's a conservative and spending, which is kind of contentious, right? But this Heather, like you say, she's just an awesome candidate. I don't know if we need her, the watershed. I don't think there's anybody on there that has experience on that, right? Because we already have someone that does litigate for Bonnie.
Utility.
Yeah, so as we acquire land or whatever, she knows about acquiring land, so I think the guy that is the
real estate.
The real estate, I think this woman.
Oh, Nora.
Yeah, she's really in tune with that.
That's true.
So I think he's out. I just look at the dynamic on that board, and it's well represented all around. The only thing we lose a farmer. And when we talk about the watershed, or not the watershed, but the drainage district, it's real important. I have problems on my own property because of the drain tile.
Okay. So, I have two people that would like to make a motion, and I get that. But we have the liaison to the Conservation District. If he would like to make the motion, I will defer to him on that because of that. But on the other hand, Paul, I know you're new and it sort of puts you in a spot, so if you would rather.
Yeah, I would rather the city members that.
Don't back down.
No, I mean,
He's giving you the opportunity, take that opportunity.
I would,
Mine,
Shoot from your gut.
I would vote for John.
You want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion.
I mean, I'm no disrespect to anybody, but he is the liaison to the
and
conservation.
I
District.
appreciate that.
I'll make a motion.
Okay,
And then I would second that.
okay. Any, have a motion and a second for Mr. Henning.
I have to tell you, I would prefer to have Heather. And that's why I'm going to vote.
That's
Okay.
okay.
Yeah,
It really is okay.
That's why we're a committee and that's why we're voting. And like I said, it'd be nice to not have a no vote, but I'm sort of on Joe's camp. I'm in Joe's camp on this one. So anyway, so if no more conversation, we're going to go to vote. Jim,
Yes.
Carolyn,
No.
Joe,
No.
Carl,
Yes.
Paul,
Yes.
Dina,
Yes.
and I vote no, because I just think Heather Brady would blow us away. So where are we at? 4-3 for Mr. Henning? Okay.
And again, if I could apologize to Heather on this, because she is dynamic, and I'm sorry, I appreciate all the conversation today.
Yeah, okay, great conversation. Thank you all from that perspective. And then we're lucky that was that tough a deal.
Yeah,
Oh
yeah.
my gosh. Has it ever happened before?
No.
Not while I've been here.
Not like.
What's going on in conservation, man? This is like,
I mean,
Pretty tough
people
place
want
to
to
be.
get, this is the place to be.
We did have an administration that would have only brought one person in front of us, so that's a few years
Yeah,
ago.
that was.
Yeah, Jack used to review them, and you'd only get one name.
Oh,
I remember those
I mean,
days.
this is like, do we have any other openings that we could call these people and say, here's all the things that we have available in the county?
Okay.
Well, and the other thing that it's not really something for us to debate, but the chairman actually makes the recommendation. We make a recommendation to the chairman, so.
Chairman decides, yeah.
I mean, does he get to talk to Heather? Does he get to talk to
Do
John?
whatever he wants to do.
Oh, okay. This
He
is brutal.
could throw out this and then take her.
Oh, okay.
It's his choice.
This,
Right.
well, somebody let him know that this is
I'm not
brutal.
getting into that mess.
Read the bottom of the resolution, chairman's prerogative.
Yeah,
No,
okay,
I-
we're gonna take a break, because Carolyn needed to take a break. It's 10:30. Kathy's been here for 2 hours, and she
Oh my
would
gosh,
like a
yeah.
break. So 5-minute break, or 10 at the most, please.
coming in.
I know.
Man,
What's up,
rude.
Dano?
Talk quick.
Start, go ahead, start.
Okay.
Okay, we good? Call the meeting back to order at 10:30, and we move on to number 8.1, film permit framework, Alex Wall, County Administration.
Good morning, Alex Wall, County Administration Intern, trying to make it quick too. So over the past month, we've been working on updating the McHenry County film permit framework based off of the comments, questions, and concerns of last month's meeting from the board here. But we've also reached out to six or seven film agencies over the past month to really engage with them to see whether or not the film permit framework was straightforward, whether or not the fee structure made sense and or was it too overbearing, and if they had any additional suggestions to help us better serve future filming in McHenry County. And so far, over the past month, we've gotten pretty good feedback from those six groups of people. Really good feedback. It's not overbearing, so that's been good so far. As to the actual changes themselves, we've been working on updating the definitions for filming activities, news media, and studio filming that was added on, because I did notice that there are studio filming locations throughout the county. Exemptions added on to personal/family video, as to not require personal filming, require a permit would make sense, as well as studio filming. Some updates to level 2 regarding private property, just inclusion of that language to make sure that that's throughout level 1, 2, and 3. And lastly, notification of neighbors. We thought that might give some more transparency if, let's say they're filming during the day or at night, for example, to give property owners some more notification that there would be filming. So that's basically just of the updates so far. And any questions, let me know. But following this up, we'll be sending this over to the State's Attorney's Office as well to make sure that it's good to go.
I would say send it to the State's Attorney's Office and then get it to the ZBA, because it's got to go through the ZBA for it to get it changed in the ordinance.
Okay. Yeah, we'll work with Adam and his team on that step as well.
I'm fine with it. All I have to tell you guys is just remember, when San Francisco had this problem when they decided to film Die Hard, because they blew off those buildings in the middle of the night. It upset a lot of neighbors.
Well, I'm okay if we get a Die Hard.
So, yeah, that neighborhood notification thing in the city like that would be just impossible. So where do we draw the line on neighborhood notification? If we say, or how do we know they did it? Or we trust that they do it until somebody complains?
Well,
It says all they gotta do is hand out a flyer.
You're notified?
Yeah.
That's it?
That's part of it.
Stick a flyer to their door?
Yeah.
Okay.
A handle.
Yeah.
It's not that hard to do. I mean, when we're in the county, you don't generally have 5,000 people within 250 feet. You got
Cars, planes, and automobiles or whatever was filming out on Bolton, not Altenburg.
Yeah, well, they did. Well,
But they covered 10, 15 miles out there. I mean, that's just, it wasn't like one neighbor, here's the house, and then go to the next neighbor. They were all the way up and down that road for an afternoon. Just a thought. Personally, I'm okay with it. You got feedback from all 6 film companies?
Not all 6, but we did get feedback and discussed with a few of them, specifically the Netflix Scout manager, I forget his name at this time, but we also spoke with a smaller agency in McHenry County so far. So.
Yeah. So that's important to note. It was both local production companies and we had a major production company provide comments. So, and part of that, yeah, and it was very favorable feedback. In fact, they were commending the county for putting something in place and that was reasonable, that made sense. And then we actually had the benefit of receiving, was it Los Angeles' film permit? What did that company say? And they said, there's some points in the Los Angeles filming permit that we took a look at, we incorporated. But really the intent is to encourage filming. right? That's an industry. Even the naturally McHenry County, looking at our tourist-based economy, we know that that's a draw, and that's something that is working its way into the strategic plan. But to encourage filming, but still preserve and protect, the residents, the community, the impact on public resources. So we're trying to strike that balance. But really pleased with that feedback and the discussions we had with the production company. So.
Okay. I think what you've done there is way more important than my opinion. Because I don't know anything about these. So, I don't, any other comments? I mean, that's, if you've been working on it, that's fantastic. Obviously, Scott's involved. State's attorney needs to look at it. ZBA needs to look at it, see if there's more feedback coming back in. But I don't have any further comment on it for myself.
I'd like to see it done. I think you've done a great job on it so far, and let's get it in the ordinance so that those industries can come here.
Right. They got a path now, right? That's their idea, is but they got a path, so when they knock on our door, they know what direction to go.
Yeah, that's structure.
Right. They're not gonna pull a truck into town with 50 people and all of a sudden say, you gotta go or anything. So, okay, what do you want from us? Just say to move this forward to the state's attorney's office for review?
That's exactly it. Is it we just consensus on the direction that we're going, how it's put together? Does it meet your intent for what you want?
Do you need a motion to send it on? I think in the past it just goes straight to the ZBA, and that's fine with me.
Yeah. We're just looking for consensus. This will ultimately come back to you in resolution, or actually, would it be ordinance form?
The ordinance.
So ordinance form. So you'll see it in its final form. But we just want to make sure we're going in the right direction. We're meeting your intent, your vision. We'll check those boxes, and next time you'll see it, it'll be in ordinance form.
Okay, great.
That's good to me.
Great.
Keep at it.
Appreciate your efforts on it.
You want to take it to yourself, is that what you're wondering?
Contacting those people was the right direction to go with it. We got something good moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
I didn't know it was. So you know who you are.
It's good enough for the transportation.
All right.
Okay, Adam.
All right.
Let's see here. I don't want to confuse the issue, but you're here for the ZBA hearing officer reports, correct?
Yes.
Okay, pardon?
But
Comprehensive plan.
comprehensive plan first. There's a comprehensive plan
Oh,
discussion.
okay, I'm sorry, I skipped over it. Yep, comprehensive plan.
All right. So, a couple of things. We talked last month, we're poised to bring it forward to the county board, starting and kind of kicking it off with a presentation on the 15th, next Thursday, at the COW by John Housiel, partner and owner of House of Levine. We have been working with their staff, coordinating and with Carolyn giving us a lot of feedback from the RPC and kind of communicating through some of the public comments that were both verbally provided, written, and making sure that they were in there, coordinated, that the intent that was really put together from the RPC and the public comments were married with, a cleaner package. We came out last year and that didn't work, right? I mean, it was a pretty memorable meeting for myself anyway. We've got it. As of 7:45 this morning, we got the updated draft in hand. So one of the things, I guess, to talk with you all about is how best to disseminate that. As we talked, putting it on the county board agenda, that puts it out there for everybody. And that it would just be a matter of once that's released, that's when you would have it. So I'm anxious to get it to you, but I want to make sure everyone has the right copy. So maybe something to think on as we go forward, unless there's some other conversation to have on that right now.
Carl has a question.
For the two new ones, you don't know about it, but the plan was about an inch thick. The revised that you have, is that like, okay, page 1's been redone, this is the red line, and page 50 is a red line, or is this a complete new rewrite?
Unfortunately, we were pushing for that, for a red line version. But they use a product called InDesign. Puts magazines together is really what the form, what the purpose of that is. They're telling us that they don't have the ability to provide a red line that shows this is what it was, this is what it is.
but we have versions. So we've got this version here, and we can look back and compare it to our previous versions, going all the way back, and they're all memorialized up to the one that went, the draft that went to the RPC, the Regional Planning Commission, the one that came out, and then, you know, the subsequent revisions that have come up until this one. So, but we're gonna do our best in terms of the conversations. John will give an overview of what's in the plan, chapter by chapter, conceptual foundation leading up to each of those chapters. And then from there, we can really dive into, that'll kind of be my task, is to provide that background for whatever that issue is or whatever that concern or question is, and how it's evolved.
Okay.
You'll talk about changes that were made?
We'll highlight,
No, go ahead.
yeah, I mean, there's certainly gonna be some changes that were made that everybody kind of knows of, right? You know, that whether it was the maps or whether it was the spelling errors and all that. And then there's some other ones that were just, truthfully, they were just wrong, or outdated, you know, in terms of, the best one for that would be the groundwater, where we get our groundwater, it was just flipped. So that one needed to be revised, and so we worked through that. Another one would be a focus on sensible salting. In the past year since that was published, and we've advanced beyond where that actually is. So those would be some of the changes that we took.
Just to clarify, because I think I'm sensing nothing was changed so much that there should be concern that there was a change in policy. That's going to come back to you, us, right? The only changes were really grammatical, which was huge, and structural. Accuracy, like with the maps and some of the things that you're talking about. And then what never got incorporated were public comments. Public comments oftentimes were just correcting the record. Like Land Conservancy came in and said, no, we have this many acres. Or, you know, the Conservation District came in and said, oh, can you please refer to us as this? And so that had to be incorporated into the document. Some of those got through and some of them didn't. So it was just really going back and cleaning up the document. Then after it gets presented, then it's gonna come back here and you can comment on whatever you want. So I think a red line at this point would be so hard to read, and it's not really helping you at all. I mean, this is what the commission came up with corrections and additional public comments.
Yeah, there's
and then it's up
limitations
to
of
us
what
to
can be
decide.
changed. And we stuck with it, we adhered to those limitations.
Right.
So to that, I guess that's the next chunk of information to go through. So May 15th would be the committee of the whole presentation. There's no action required from the county board to go on 30-day review. It's not an ordinance, it's a plan adoption. So, but we're kind of treating it as an ordinance. So we're presenting it a month prior, everybody will have it for that month. And then what we would put it on the next timeline would be to come forward in June for PED. If we get to that point or we're leading up to that meeting and that's too tight, we boot it.
How did you solve the problem about acreage and like 2 units to an acre on East estate zoning?
So that is, we actually didn't touch it.
Because that's a mess.
That's a mess, right? And so there's two options to adjust. There's either the development path and plan, or there's the density and where that density would be. So
those the new guys know here. One of the things you're trying to do in a plan is you're saying we've got a projection. We're going to grow. I think it's 27,000 people. Yeah. Is what they project. Okay. So part of your plan to be considered relevant is, have you provided for a place where 27,000 people could be? All right. Well, one of the things the plan did was it first started out by saying estate zoning is going to be 2 units to an acre. We don't have any estate zoning that's 2 units to an acre. Okay? All of our estate zoning is 1 unit to an acre. All right? So when you know, if you're going to actually say it's 2 units to an acre, you got to go back and fix that. The reason we don't have 2 units to an acre is because we're on septic. And if you start doing septics on half acres, you're gonna run into Wonder Lake problems. Okay, and I'm not trying to pick on Wonder Lake, but they were designed at a time when you could do half acres or 10,000 square foot septic systems, and that creates problems. So that's one of the, because they did that formula, the map doesn't work to say you don't have 27 place for 27,000 people because you don't really have half-acre zoning in the states. It doesn't exist. And so that was one of the things that I look at. I don't care which way we fix it, but I think we got to be honest with the public when we say we're providing 27,000, for this projected population growth, but we haven't. Because you can't just say, we've got some sections in there, they talk for, 10 units to an acre for apartment dwelling?
Yeah.
You're not doing 10 units per acre apartment dwelling unless you create a new septic system. We don't have such a thing.
The size of it would be bigger than that.
Than the acreage. And so
And a minimum of square footage would double would 10 times it, right?
I don't remember, I don't have the formula, I just know that you're not putting 10 units to an acre on a septic system altogether. It just isn't gonna happen. You could build 100 units, now you got 10 acres in buildings, and what's your septic system gonna be? Or how are you disposing of sewer? If you're in a town, that makes sense. You can hook into the sewer system and you're all set. But we don't have that. Other towns, other counties have solved that problem. Pete's from Lake County originally. They used to have their own septic disposal, or they used to have their own sewer plant for the whole county. I don't think there's been any push from our side that we want to start doing. We want to create a utility department to do septic or to do sewer systems. I've never heard a county board member argue for that. and I know I don't think we should be doing that. But those are, my concern was I want the plan to be honest that it actually says, here's where you can put 27,000 people. We've accommodated that growth curve. If we don't accommodate that growth curve, the plan's really not functional. You haven't done, now it's easier today with 27,000 than when they did this in 2000 or working on a 2020 plan and we hadn't had the crash yet and we were expecting 100,000 people, not 27,000 people. But you still have, between now and 2050, I'd be surprised if we don't have 27,000 more people. That's not a huge number over 25 years. That's 1,000 people a year. That's not a big growth curve.
So, and then that's a great example of things that will be deliberated and really discussed by this committee, by the county board. And I guess as we look at the plan, what levers and what buttons and, how can you calibrate an answer for that? So, looking at that, there's that information is represented in paragraph form, and then it's applied on a map. And then there's this underlining concept of if we have development, it should be contiguous or within a municipality. So to Joe's point, that development, all 27,000 people shouldn't, there's no real anticipation that they should be here. And maybe that needs to be really hardlined and better codified, better placed in that plan.
So why wouldn't we be doing that at this committee before it goes to the cow?
That's fair. That's fair. I mean, if we'd like to iron that out, I think that would be something that if we change it, I guess here's part of the answer. If we change that, we could probably do that forever.
What do you mean forever?
If we dissected it before the presentation, if you wanted to, I mean, that's part of the model, I guess, is that it is coming here before the cow, but it's coming next month. If it doesn't go to cow after this committee because we want to send it back and get it revised, that's always an option. The presentation was really what we were looking for to kick it off.
Okay, get a presentation. We know there's some issues that we want to work on at the next meeting with presentations so the other board members could weigh in if they seen something or felt that we needed to change something. So when it did come here the next time, we had a fuller package of what we wanted to do with it.
That's the goal. That's the intended goal.
Okay, that makes sense to me. Anyone else?
You had a commission spend a year and a half on this.
Yep.
Yeah.
To present that to the whole board.
Yeah.
Is there a deadline that we have to pass this?
2050.
Maybe 2030.
Maybe
2030.
But that plan's even 2030 and beyond, so, yeah, so
We
2050.
did it in 2049, we could get it right. Just look.
We nailed it.
Yeah, okay, no, I get that then. Let's get it to the whole board, right, guys? And
Yeah.
Kyle and, maybe a little other.
Their feedback would help us make the
Great.
determinations.
Get a few more eyes on it and maybe we can.
Sure.
I'm not trying to stop it, I'm trying to.
Totally.
I'm
Yeah.
trying to close that hole.
In all sincerity, the comprehensive plan has a rich history here, right? Yeah, so we're excited to bring this forward. But really, everyone, we sat through the strategic planning meeting. Everybody had similar goals, right? And maybe the handwriting was different on what those goals and how it looked, but the goals were pretty much the same. I'm excited to get into the deliberations on these and really kind of hone in which way we want to go. So, yeah, thank you.
Now, you said all that, but what I'm hearing is get the darn things done.
I'm tired of working
Well put,
on
Larry.
this.
Let's get to the meat of it. Okay.
Yeah, we're excited to use a different plan, that's for sure.
Oh, go ahead, you had a question?
Adam,
Yes, sir.
as per the new folks here, how long have you been working on it? As a team, putting this all together? How does it actually start?
That was the actual work. I mean, the white paper, there's this infamous white paper that was put together by my predecessor in 21. That really kind of set the whole formula for the project. And then in 22, it was put into the fiscal FY23 budget. So the first action, aside from committee action to advance to the next step, was in 2022. The commission was placed and we kicked it off in March of 23. And then it really took it got a faster pace in 2024, where it went from almost quarterly meetings-ish to monthly meetings. And then at the end of 24 is when it was, the RPC handed over to the county board for review. But that's when, we just didn't marry everything appropriately, and in terms of some of the public feedback and comments, and then now we're here today. And then there was the elections and get everybody seated at that point.
If you don't have a comprehensive plan, your zoning ordinance doesn't count.
Yeah.
You without a comprehensive plan, you have no authority to have zoning ordinance.
We passed the transportation one, right?
They work together.
Transportation is passed, yeah,
That's
that was
done.
passed while we
The
were
board,
this together.
yeah.
So if you can imagine trying to run the county without a zoning ordinance, you think you get calls now.
Approve everything.
And that just
It's
gets
just, you just go
incorporated.
for a building permit. You don't
Yes,
have-
yeah, that is all informed. Yeah, this is informed by that plan.
Like Northern Missouri.
So that one, they really can't change
Like,
it.
LaSalle County before 2000.
I mean, you can change these at any, you can adopt one chapter
Property,
if
go
you
build
so
that.
chose.
But we've already done the transportation.
It's beautiful,
Yeah.
man.
So then only,
I mean, in towns,
We wouldn't
you
change
get
that.
No.
cities and stuff that you would, not on a
Right.
So, did we answer your question for you then, Adam?
You did, thank you,
Great.
thank you, yeah.
Okay.
Can we move on to the zoning reports then?
Yeah, we can.
Who's gonna be taking,
Renee.
so soon I forget, Renee.
I am now Renee, yeah, no.
Forever?
No, goodness, no. No, if you have any planners, we have not had a lot of traffic on that yet. But
Okay.
yeah.
Well, I knew there was something wrong when one of the flyers came out, and I won't say who sent it from your office, but somebody sent it to me and wanted to know if I would be interested.
You never know, Joe.
Whoops.
Yeah.
you might want to start reaching out for your
Yeah, I don't
Yeah.
think that's the, I don't
So
think
don't
that's-
send you the follow-up flyer?
Don't send you to wage.
Okay, let's go to zoning. Let's go, just quick run through the zoning
Yeah.
things. Which one's gonna be a problem? Number one?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, well, no, that is gonna be the one that's most notable.
Which one?
We certainly have a couple of letters of objection. It's a food processing with animal slaughter in Heartland Township.
Is that right by the Valley High?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay, what direction? I'm not familiar with it. I didn't get a chance to look through it.
That
It's
is
northeast.
east of Valley High.
Yeah, it's on the north side of.
North side of the tracks? In the little village there?
Farmstead there.
Is it in the little village area or
Pardons?
the little village area on the east
I
side of
think
the
it's
tracks?
west of that.
It's east of the tracks.
It's east of that? All
It's
right.
east of the tracks.
Okay. I'll look it up, I'll look it up, I just.
It's east of the tracks, it was an old farmstead, and I don't even think there's a house there. Oh, there is a house there, but
It looks like a little farm.
yeah, they're building it, they have sheep out there now.
Not really next to anything.
No, it really isn't. I mean, you'll see.
By itself.
Yeah.
So the ZBA approved 5-0.
5-0.
And your department, staff recommendations, anything from you or?
It really fits. I mean, there's only one discussion point that we've had on there, and that's in terms of it's an A1 property now. There's animal husbandry on it, and this is a new conditional use for that property and animal husbandry based on that section in the food processing with animal slaughter. It's prohibited to have that. Just as it introduces different aspects of food, water, rodent pest control, etc. So that's the concept there. So there's a little bit of an existing issue, but as far as the conditional use and that slide coming through, nothing.
Have we had any complaints on the Marengo food processing, packing plant, whatever you want to call it?
I have not been party to any complaints in several years. The last complaint that we had fielded was actually.
I'm talking the little one on Highway 20 on the west edge of town that we had a lot of controversy about?
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
No complaints, good.
No complaints.
Maybe that's all I have on that one, and not,
No.
yeah. Is the other ones, what's with the packing plant getting calls on in Greenwood or Ground Greenwood?
That one's not coming to the board just yet. It has a couple of different conditions or site conditions that make it, that have caused some of the outreach and some of the objections.
Okay.
But I'll have to find out where it is. I know it's not coming through this month, and it may come through next month. It may be ready in June.
I didn't know there was someone coming.
Pardon?
This
There's
one's
another one coming?
This one's more poultry, and it's a little bit of a different operation than the goats, cattle, etc.
Because it's in my district, and so they're asking questions about like smells and where does the blood go, and who actually comes out and checks that they are being,
sure,
in compliance and stuff. So what is the, well, I guess I can look it up too, but does Henry County have a ordinance for, once a month we come in, or is that the health department?
The USDA has an on-site inspector for these, and so they'll have an office there. There's the expectation and the obligation on the USDA to be there. In terms of the smells, we haven't, that's kind of one of the things that was brought up at the previous plant or operation in Marengo. We've never had any complaints about smells. It's at all.
I think in the process of it, most of that waste is frozen and taken off site.
Every day. So it's taken, it's put into a freezer immediately, and then there's a collection group that comes out every day and takes that.
For the blood?
The blood and the end tray.
Okay,
yeah.
Okay. They just feel like they're just gonna be thrown in part of the property.
Yeah, they're not grass clipping.
It goes into the swamp.
Yeah, no, yeah.
I got another one. It is.
That's the way it used to be.
As a brand new facility, from feds, state and county and OSHA and everything else, there's a tremendous amount of rules and regulations that they've got to adhere to. Unlike, I don't want to get too far, the Marengo that was in existence, having to, that's been there for a while versus here's something new. And now you're gonna have to do this, this, and this.
Yeah.
That are to the standards, correct?
Yeah, I mean, it's very prescriptive in terms of what the requirements will be, depending on the system, whether it's the structural system, the fluid and waste treatment systems, all that stuff.
It's the whole industry. There's a whole section of society doesn't want this industry to exist. And so you will hear, and as a result, they're turning everybody who's in the industry who wants it to exist in for regulation day after day after day. These guys or gals or whoever's running this operation is going to have no room to maneuver. They're going to.
That was my point.
They're going to follow this rule, or they're going to
being brand new, we're going to be X, and it's going to be a clean facility. So hence the problems they're worried about that ain't gonna be.
But even the older facilities have to go by the
Oh, yeah,
USDA
absolutely.
inspection stuff. So, anything else on this? Otherwise, we'll go to the other ones. Anything controversial down the line here?
No, yeah, there's, the other ones are all A1, A2. There's some nuances to one of the A1s, A2, where it's a setback just to accommodate the existing house. It's an old house going back in the 40s. The other one, A1 to R1, that house burned down. And so it's, in order to rebuild, they have to change the zoning because it's now.
Any problem on your end about that one? No, okay.
No, there is some indication.
You're saying because the building's no longer there, it's
Gone.
gone, that
The
A2, the A2.
So they had to do R1 to make it comply.
Yeah.
But we just passed an A2 with no house on it.
This one's an A1. This is an A1. So in order for them to build on it, they would have to do an A1. I'm sorry, R1. In order to go to an A2, the house has to be existing.
You're saying.
So there's some nuances to
But
it.
we just passed one on the floor last month or 2 months ago.
That was subdivision.
It was a subdivision and we zoned an A2 to build a house.
I couldn't be, you remember you're talking about the little 5 acre?
I believe that went from an A2 to an R, or an estate subdivision.
It was a state.
The 2 parcels.
Was it a state?
E2 or something like
I thought it
that.
was an,
Well, the
yeah,
house was a state.
E something. Sorry.
Okay, maybe I'm backwards on that.
Okay. Well, if anyone has any questions on any of these zoning things, call our new planning.
I do have one more note on that.
Okay,
There's-
yes.
In that, the one that burned down that's going to R1, it has some indications, some discussions in somewhere in there about subdividing it. That's not part of this application. So if they do subdivide it, it would have to go through the subdivision process, just like that Shea subdivision. So, but it is in there and just before it.
Okay. But not our concern this week.
Not our concern.
Not part of the application.
Nope.
Okay, good. Future topics, I don't have any. Anybody else have anything? Okay, ask for a motion to adjourn. So moved by Carl, seconded by Joe. All those in favor say aye.
Hey.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for a lively morning.